Most of my leads that come from Instagram, they're not commenting, they're not liking, but they're watching, right?
Theming your days and then coming up with some type of a signature series. And if you want to name that signature series, we have tons of name ideas.
What are maybe some ways to be consistent when it feels really hard to stay motivated?
How do I get more leads?
How do I stand out in my market?
Is it unprofessional to talk about my kids on Instagram?
Should I have one account or two?
Do I really need a personal brand as a real estate agent?
We are the Modern Agent Marketing Girls. We are two agents turned marketing experts who believe you can become the go-to real estate girl in your market, all because you are you. I'm Chelsea Peterson, founder and CEO of Modern Agent Social Club.
And I'm Kayla Fox, Modern Agent's content creator. Let us be your guides as we talk about what it means to market your real estate business the modern way.
So refill your favorite beverage, open your notes app, and get ready to build a business and a brand you're obsessed with. Let's go. I am here with Kelly Althof today. She is a member of Modern Agent Social Club, and we are here to do a fun little coaching call. So welcome to Modern Agent Marketing Girls, Kelly.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
You were just telling me before I hit record that you actually have a podcast. Can you tell our listeners about your podcast?
Yes. So a friend and I started it about 5 years ago during COVID because we help lead the women at our church. It's more Christian based. So like women in our church, and now it used to be called Empower, but now we call it Action Women because that's the name of our church is Action Church. And so super simple. We're not that creative. But yeah, we just kind of talk about different things, stories in the Bible, Jesus, like community, like the value of all of that in our lives. And so we do that on the side for fun, me and my best friend Kaylee, and it's a lot of fun.
That is so fun. I feel like that's something I would listen to if my church had that. I just think it's such a like community building part to the church. Like if you're not involved in a small group, or you're not involved in other like in-person things, it's a way to kind of stay connected. So that's really cool. Okay, so where do you live? Where do you sell real estate? Can you tell us a little bit about your business? Like how long have you been selling real estate? And then I have some like fun questions to dive into.
Ooh, okay. All right. So I live in Orlando, Florida. Technically, I live in the suburbs of Orlando. So a lot of Orlando people call it like Central Florida or Greater Orlando area. So in a little town called Winter Springs. And yeah, I actually serve on staff at our church and do real estate, which is a lot of fun. I've been doing real estate. This is like I'm going into my third year of it, which is great, but I don't count my first year at all. So,
Well, the first year's the hardest. So you're actually like, at least that's over, right?
right. So last year was amazing. I got to help a lot of people. I kind of got my feet wet, started really working of like, how do I find leads? I started doing the Instagram thing more on Instagram, which has honestly helped my business a ton. And I really love it. It's my kids are older now. And so I have the time, and the life experience, I feel like, to help people. So
We have quite a few members in that area. Are you connected with a lot of members?
no, I need to be better. I just kind of started Modern Agent, which I love, but so I probably need to be better about getting on the Facebook page and connecting. That is one of my goals for the year, is to connect with more people outside of even my sphere.
Christina Malo Dunn is in that area. And I feel like she is just like she knows everyone. So I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if you know her, but I'll have to introduce you guys.
Yeah, for sure. If there's a meetup, I am down. I love that.
Okay, I have some fun questions for you to kind of just learn your personality a little bit for the listeners and for me. If your real estate brand was a cocktail or a coffee order, what would it be?
So my favorite cocktail right now is something called a French 75. Which it's like gin, lemon, and Prosecco on top. And so I would say that mainly because it's, my real estate is kind of a mix of a lot of fun. I love having fun. I like making honestly real estate simple for people. And so a French 75 is in a really fancy cup. It's elevated, but it's also just super simple. And so I hope that's a good answer.
No, I love your answer. I'm like that you couldn't have had a better answer, and it could have been a million different drinks, but you like learn so much about someone's personality from that simple answer to your question.
Yeah.
I love the approach of like it feels elevated, but the experience is going to be kept simple for you as the client. You know, like you can use that in so much of your marketing.
Yeah.
The one that I've used like for my whole life since I had my own business and started real estate was I always said like the glass of wine with a friend approach, where like I want you to feel comfortable and I want you to feel like you can ask me any questions that you have, and we're gonna like sit down, have a glass of wine and chat real estate. Like not like you're like getting pushed contracts in your face and like you have to sign on the dotted line before I'll talk to you. Like, so that was kind of my vibe. So I think it's so fun to like take a cocktail and twist it into your branding in some way, if you like it and if it's your vibe. Okay, cool. Do you have a current real estate ick? Like something you're just like, I hate when this happens in our industry, or when this happens with other agents, or like, is there anything that comes to mind?
Ooh, I don't want to be like offensive to anybody, but yeah, I think honestly one of my icks, especially starting out. So I am older. Like I started at 40. I'm 43 now, which is crazy. But when I started, and even sometimes now, my biggest ick is when a real estate agent, because you always have to work together with other real estate agents. It's actually one of my favorite parts of the job, like the team aspect of it. And I've met some amazing agents out there. But my ick would be the agents that are like, I've been doing this for so and so years. And if ever I hear it, it's like a red flag that I have to be like, a little bit on my game, because just because they've been doing it for that many years doesn't mean they're good at it. And most of the time they're sometimes I've noticed like they're almost like a little lazy with it. But real estate moves so fast, and even the 3 years I've done it has changed so much. So it's always a red flag to me when it's like, I've been doing this, and they'll almost sometimes use it in a weird way to like gaslight you, and I don't like that. So
Or like you don't know what you're offering because you're inexperienced. I remember this one agent, it's so funny because now I've known him like for a really long time personally, but in the moment of me being a brand new agent, I wrote an offer on this like really disheveled, falling down property, and he like said I totally lowballed it, and he said that same line, like, I've been doing this for 25 years, you don't know what you're doing, blah blah blah. Well, like fast forward, the property sold for the price we wrote the offer for, but not to us. My clients like backed away. And then secondly, he tried to recruit me like a year later, and I'm like, did you know that I'm the agent that you said that to? Like, what are you thinking? No, I don't want to work for you. So yeah. It's just really funny. But yeah, I totally agree. That is like something I don't think ever goes away, apparently. Okay, I have a fun question now. What is one just for fun topic you wish you could post about on Instagram that has nothing to do with real estate?
Okay, so you know when you go to your like For You feed, or I think it's called that. I don't know what it's called. But on Instagram, that mine is filled with two things that are not real estate. It is filled with cheerleading and sharks. And it's so weird. But I just love, so I coach cheerleading on the side. I would love to do that, but most of my sphere would not care about anything cheerleading. I coach high school, and so it's a lot of fun. And sometimes I'll post fun little snippets on my stories because it's what part of my life, but I never do post. But I would love to post and even use cheerleading for something, because I'm also a coach, so I love that. But and then I don't know why, I just love Shark Week and sharks. They're just very intriguing. I used to want to be a marine biologist until I realized all the science classes I had to take in college, and then I was like, no. But, but yeah, I would love that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's amazing. First of all, with cheerleader, I instantly think like you are the cheerleader to a buyer or a seller. Like you could be their their coach, their cheerleader. So that totally aligns.
And I've realized that everyone calls me Coach Kelly. It's even at church, like I'm Coach Kelly. It's become part of my persona. That's also my personality. Like I just love like coaching. And so I think I'm like starting to change some of my branding to like Coach Kelly. So I did a freebie recently, and I signed it, instead of signing it Kelly, I signed it Coach Kelly. And I'm going to try implementing that and see how it goes.
It's so cute. It's just that little teeny splash that would make something stand out or set you apart. Like, and then it ties into like the fact that you actually coach. So it's not just this random thing. It's like you're taking an experience that you have from real life and you're like aligning it with how that makes you a better agent. I already feel like I know you so well from just this short conversation. And that's like the power of Instagram, which I'm sure you've realized too, because you said you've been using it now for a while. But it's just so cool to like take these like granular topics that are seemingly like unimportant or like silly, or the fact that you love a French 75, and you kind of bring them into your brand and bring them into social media, and you end up having like all these conversations with people who can relate, So I'm super excited to get into your questions. So today Kelly is going to ask me her top marketing questions, and I'm going to give her personal feedback. So I strategically asked you these questions first just to know a little bit about like how I can give you really direct advice now as we dive into your questions. So this was so helpful to know.
That's great. All right, so I did write down a bunch of questions, and the first one, so the question basically is, how can I turn engagement into real leads without being salesy and pushy? And I'll kind of like expound a little bit. I feel like with Instagram specifically and leads that I get, a lot of them are still my sphere, but they're my sphere because they follow me on Instagram, and but I'm their top of mind. So I was even talking to a new client, and she's like, I know probably 5 or 6 realtors, but you were the one that can't come up because I see you online all the time. And it's funny because I was like, I didn't even know you were thinking about selling her house, and I wouldn't have those conversations with her in real life. I'm not, you're like, are you thinking about selling your house? Like, I thought they loved their house, they were going to stay there forever. And here she is, like, reaching out, texting me one day, like, we want to sell our house. Will you do it? And I'm like, yes, of course. And so, but then when these leads come in that sphere, maybe even a little outside of your sphere, and they're like, they'll comment on a post or something that like gives me a flag that's thinking, oh, they're thinking about buying a house. But I don't want to be like, I'm your girl. Like, I am your girl, but I don't want to be pushy either. I still want them to feel comfortable engaging without me, like trying to hook them, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. And I think what you're doing with your sphere already, like, is a testament to that what you're doing is working, because everyone does know a million agents, and it's like, why do they want you? And actually in the Story Brand book, they talk about how like you want your offer. I mean, it's kind of talking about it in the sense of a product, but like you want it to seem easy. And I feel like because they're like sitting there scrolling Instagram and you're there and you're top of mind, they're not having to go like Google and research who's the best agent. They already feel like they know you, and they're like, okay, I'm going to ask Kelly. Like, I'm not going to even like, it's like very little brain power that they have to use to know, like, you're the go-to agent. For the people like that are more commenting, and you can kind of tell, like, obviously you're going to have agents that are going to probably DM them and be like, hey, I saw that you're thinking of like selling your house. Like, here's how I can help you. That's not really my style.
Yeah.
Obviously there's things you can do like that, but what my style would be more so is to have a little strategy to your Instagram stories that kind of constantly weave in this call to action of what the next step might be. So whether the next step is like requesting a freebie, like maybe every Tuesday, like I like to theme the actual day of the week so that in my mind I'm knowing like, okay, on Tuesday I'm going to do this, rather than if I just say, okay, I'm going to do this every so often, then like all of a sudden a month goes by and I haven't done it. So like saying every Tuesday I'm going to weave this into my story. And we have story sequences now at Modern Agent that kind of help you drip it along. So like your first slide of the day might just be like a simple good morning, and you have like something from like tell me about your morning routine. What's something you do every morning?
Oh yeah, I actually started implementing that, and I'd have my Starbucks every day. I have Starbucks. It's a problem, but I love it, and so
I went
have
through
my
this.
Starbucks as I'm taking my Starbucks. Sorry, but I have my Starbucks, and I will do like good morning, and sometimes I'll try to add. And it's funny because I thought, do people even like care about this? But I had a girl, again, like just a friend of mine, that was like, oh my gosh, I'm loving your shaking of your cups every day. And I'm
Seriously, it's like a comfort feeling or something. It's like I can expect to see this every morning. So you would do that like as your first story, for an example. Say good morning, and then maybe you say like, here's what I have going on today. And then like your third slide can be something about like, if this is you, here's what you could do to learn more, or blah blah blah. And you could like link a freebie or tell them how to get it, or put a question sticker box or a poll and say like, if you want more information, drop your email, or answer the poll yes or no. Sometimes the poll is even easier because it's like a very low effort way for them to say like, yes, I am, versus like, okay, if I put my email in here now, is she gonna try to like get an appointment with me? And like, honestly, if this is in your stories and they know your vibe isn't pushy, people probably won't think that. But it's just like an easy like click the button and then like I'll reach out to you. And that way the person's saying like, it's almost this like if you sign up for someone's email list, it's kind of like that. Like they're giving you the permission to reach out, versus like you seeing a comment and like randomly reaching out, So it kind of gives that like next step of like, okay, they do want to talk about this or they do want to have that conversation. The other part with that is maybe like, depending on how often you post, but let's say, it doesn't have to be specific, but like every 5 posts, you're going to have one that maybe talks about like that you offer a mini consult, or that like what is the next way to work with you? And it could just be the end of a carousel, honestly. Like maybe the post is about real estate. And at the end, it's like, if you want to schedule a mini buyer consult, here's how to do it. And you have this like, it's almost like this, it's like your coffee with the ice. People just like know, even if they're not ready for it, it's just like ingrained in their brain. Like, okay, if I want to work with Kelly, or if I'm interested in thinking about selling or thinking about buying, this is what I do. And they like, it's like they subconsciously like figure that out because they're just seeing it all the time naturally without this like salesy way. It's kind of like this PS, like the power of the PS is so huge. So I think that's a really good way. Obviously, if you are getting them on your email list through something like a buyer or a seller focus lead magnet, then you could nurture them via email, like very specifically. Like then they said, okay, yes, I raised my hand. I want to know what the next steps are to buy my house, to buy my first house or whatever. And now you can like send them emails that are very specific to that, or like, hey, here's my calendar if you want to book a buyer consult with me, something like that. So I think that those are like the main things I would do. And then that gives you the kind of like peace of mind that like you're putting it out there enough and you're not worried that you're like missing someone, but you're also not being like pushy about it.
That's great. Yeah. No, I love that. I love the power of the PS. That's great.
People say it for email, like it works in emails. Cause like, let's say you read this long email and you kind of skim it and you're like, oh, like PS, da, da, da. So like a lot of times in my emails, I'll either like really briefly summarize whatever my point of the email was, like too long, didn't read this. Here's what you need to do if you want XYZ or whatever. So it's like an easy thing, like for the skimmers, for the just quick scroll through people that you're going to hit that one thing that they constantly see over and over. So that's a good one to try.
My other question was really about do you recommend a freebie or a lead magnet and what performs best? So I know you talked a little bit about freebie and even lead magnets, which I love. I've actually seen a lot of success with those because it's just an easy, like you said, they're saying, I want you to reach out about real estate. But the question was what kind perform the freebies or lead what performs best with real estate?
A couple things with this. I like the idea, like if you had 2 different ones where like one was maybe a local guide or something that would just get people on your email list or in your database that you could nurture on like whether it's a weekly or a monthly email, just to stay top of mind in that location, not just relying on Instagram, because Instagram's a whole thing. Like you might not have all of your sphere on Instagram or, things like that. So having like a local one that gets them on the email list that you can then just basically stay top of mind all the time. And then it's that one-on-one interaction. Like they're getting an email from you, Kelly. They're not like seeing you in the midst of the Instagram chaos, right? And then the second one would be something more specific to the client you really want to work with. So like if you really want to work with sellers, having something they can opt in for and keep it simple. Like we have a bunch of them at Modern Agent, but like one that I really, really love is the showing prep checklist, because it's part of the process that's kind of like in the middle. It's desirable if you're thinking about selling because you're like, yeah, I want to know that for when the time comes, but it's not giving them like a 46-page guide on everything you need to do to sell that completely overwhelms them. It's like, here's this little like quick win, like, and here's the list that I give my clients. So it feels very like it's coming directly from you. It's something that they can like use, like implement kind of right away, even if their house isn't for sale, they have this like taken care of. And then they're going to want to come to you more likely for that next step, or like, okay, well now I need to like prep my house. What do I do next? And that's where they're going to be like, give me the direct advice. Or even if they do request that freebie, something that I really like to do is to kind of deliver almost like a bonus freebie. Like, so they're now on your email list, they asked for that thing. And now via email, you could take like home seller boot camp or like whatever you want. You could name it whatever you want, but like call it something else, call it something that's on brand for you, or like your real estate coach's guide to prepping your home for sale or something like that. And then you deliver that as like hey, I have something else you might be interested in. Here it is, and then it's like this surprise and delight of, I wasn't expecting that. I already got this other thing from you. And now I get to have even more. And it's building trust.
Right. That's great. No, that's good. I have learned in the beginning, I had my like home buyer guide, and it's like, I don't know, 30 pages or something. It's like what I would give during a buyer consult, like, or a mini consult. And I was like, I feel like this is overwhelming. Like, if it would be overwhelming for me if I'm just seeking like some understanding on what are the next steps to buy. And so I actually just did that. I actually took it from Modern Agent and just made it my own, the boot camp, so the buyer's boot camp, which is only a few pages. And this is just your first step. So it's not like I always say with my kids, especially when my kids were younger, I would give them like 3 to 4 steps. Like, hey, I need you to go get dressed, put on your shoes, brush your teeth, and I don't know, like clean your room. And they would get dressed, but like not do the rest of it, right? Because they can only do one thing at a time. And I think as humans, we're kind of all the same way. And so I would learn quickly as a parent, like I give them one step. And then once they can do that, I'll sometimes add a second step just to see, if they can time management, all that good stuff. But
that is brilliant. I love this advice.
Yeah.
My son is only 2.5. So I'm like, this is all coming for me. I love this.
Yeah, I'm like, why didn't you put on your shoes? That was one of my steps. And they're like, I'm so overwhelmed with all the steps you gave me. As a 2 or 3-year-old. So now I'm like, my kids now they get dressed on their own. I don't need to tell them because they're teenagers. But yeah, I learned that I was thinking the same with my clients. Like, wait a second, they've never bought a house before. Like, they're infants when it comes to that. Why am I giving them a 30-step guideline that's overwhelming? Let me do just one step. And I feel like that's even helped me bring that clarity to them and make it as simple as possible. So
that's amazing. That brings out your coaching. Like, it's like you have that in your head. I think too, some of the maybe intention with doing like a big guide and why some agents do that is like, okay, well now they're going to be so overwhelmed, they're going to need me. And I'm like, they're going to be so overwhelmed. They're like, we're not selling right now, or we're not doing this right now. And so we don't want to do that. But I totally get, like, it would be like if Modern Agent, I was like, here's a 100-page guide on how to use social media. You'd be like, I'm so checked out right now. Like, I don't even know what to do first. So it's like these simple little baby steps that like give someone that, okay, I got this. Like, I can do this. Like, this is helpful. What's next?
Okay, so I have another question. I always hear that like data is really important, and especially with Instagram. So if we go just like with Instagram here, and so for me, I don't have a ton of followers, which I know it's not about that because I still feel like I get a lot of leads from it. And even like the engagement could be disheartening a lot of times, especially in real estate. But I've heard that, right, it's not always about that. And I've seen most of my leads that come from Instagram, they're not commenting, they're not liking, but they're watching, right? And so when it comes to data and knowing what works and what doesn't work, everyone says like, track your data. And I'm like, I am, but I don't know how it's like helping me. So what would you recommend? What are the important metrics to track to know if your content is actually working?
Well, you know what's interesting, and this is just more from my own user behavior, but like I will screenshot things, and I'm like, there is no tracking of screenshotting things. But sometimes I feel like it's those people that are watching that are doing things like that, like, or like sending it to their husband or sending it to their friend or things like that, where I guess you can now see how many shares your post has, like if someone sent it, a little airplane icon, which is helpful. So I guess just looking at more than the likes, like looking at and even comments, like looking at how many people did this post reach, how many people were followers versus non-followers, so you can kind of just tell, like, was this pushing this out to more local people maybe that aren't even following me yet? Did I get any follow backs from that post? One thing that I think is really helpful from a growth perspective, if you are like, I really want more eyeballs on my account, I want to like be connected to more people in this community, is to post more local driven content and think like shareable. So things that like someone would want to send to their friend and be like, hey, did you see this? This is so like, I love this spot in our town, or like, this is like the best coffee shop, or I love going here too for date night or whatever. So kind of coming up with a local theme, if you will, or like a local series that you could do once a week, I think would be a great way to test out if that gets you some growth. Like there's something like one that's been really growing our Modern Agent account, which is a little different because it's not to like a local audience, but is posts that really resonate with other agents. Like one of them was like literally just a real estate girl who treats every client like their best friend, which That was like my slogan when I was an agent, which is where that came from. And like so many people shared it. So then people saw it and people followed us. So things like that they can relate to. So with like knowing you're in a community, how can you get your community to do that? And it's like taking things and not just completely random, but like things that would fit your personality. So maybe if you think about like you love coaching, your kids are in high school, you're involved in your church, maybe you kind of start with like that angle, like, and it's something about like cheerleading practice and getting ice cream at this place after, and like actually using local places and their names, and then making sure that you like, I would like tag them in the comments and stuff so that they see it too. But that can be a really good growth metric to like test out. When we're talking like educational content or very heavy real estate content, it's Instagram is so, I guess, like, it's not, there is a place for that. It builds your authority, it shows your expertise, but I don't see them typically getting tons and tons of engagement. They're more like those are going to get like like they're going to get saved, or those are the ones that are going to convert, but they're not necessarily going to have a visual metric that's going to show you that. It's kind of going to be like, okay, well, after I posted that, like I had people join my email list, or, you know, I had, people request this freebie or things like that. So from a tracking standpoint, and I'm not even like a huge tracker of my data. I kind of, what Adam Mosseri actually just said on a podcast, and Adam Mosseri is the head of Instagram. He said it's more about the patterns than it is an individual post. So if you are, for example, posting something, you're like, I thought this was really good and it kind of flopped. Like, don't worry too much about that, or don't worry like, oh my gosh, like I talked about real estate and no one cared, or like, look more at the patterns of like, when I post stuff like this, it seems to perform better. And when I say perform better, that could mean I have more conversations out of it. That is almost like the number one thing I'm looking for.
Okay.
Who's DMing me, who's commenting, who's even people that are like, I listened to the podcast, like I'm getting a conversation out of it. And like a podcast, there's really no metric other than how many people downloaded it. Like, so it's like, how can you look for that, like where it's working moment? And that is usually in a conversation of some sort. So if you think about the patterns, like you start posting local and you're like, okay, now I'm kind of feeling some traction with these types of posts, I should lean into that more. Or maybe when you put your face in like a video, you're like, I'm getting more views or I'm having more watch time. Like that's a pattern. I should do that more. So that's like kind of what I would focus on more than like individual metrics of a post. And even on your account, like in the top, like in the dashboard little section below your bio, it will show you how many people you reached in the last 30 days, even kind of keeping an eye on that number and being like, okay, well, I posted more this month and that went up, or I posted more local content and that went up. Like kind of, again, that's another pattern that you can watch for, but I would focus on patterns and conversations.
That's great. I love that patterns are, greater than post. I think for me, what I've learned recently, here's my deal. My number one issue is probably my inconsistency. And I'm big on like leadership, and how to be the best leaders, you have to be consistent. And so I'm like, like I constantly am my biggest critic with that. And I think that would be my next question, because I think for me, I can get so caught up in like the data, and I have to post this many times a week. And if I didn't, like I failed, and then I get like discouraged. And so I think maybe I'll have two questions in one. Like, how often do you suggest like a busy, because you are busy also dealing with clients. For me, right, I coach, I work with our church, I have 3 teenagers. And so finding the time to post like can sometimes it can be the first thing that gets eaten up in my life, but I know it's also important. And so what are maybe some ways to be consistent with it when it feels really hard to stay motivated?
I love this question, because this is like an answer you're going to like too. Being consistent doesn't necessarily mean like more content or I need to post more. It just means posting with more intention. So if you kind of shift that to, it could be once a week. And so Adam Mosseri was on, what is the name of the podcast? It's like Brock and his mom, Shalene Johnson, whatever their podcast is called. He was talking about this, and he said like, for some accounts that's going to look like once a week. For some, it might look like once a month. The one thing to keep in mind is that the algorithm works based on data. So they're going to know more about your account when you post more frequently. That doesn't mean every day. It doesn't mean 7 days or 5 days a week even. It just means like if you wait like a month in between, and then you wait 3 weeks, and then you don't post for 2 weeks, and you're constantly in this like wide fluctuation, it's hard for the algorithm to know who's consuming her content, who am I supposed to show it to, who is it for, because they just don't have enough data on it. So it's not that like the algorithm punishes you for not posting, but it's more like when you have some consistency, it's going to be more helpful for you to reach the right people. So when I say all that, basically I would think posting with more intention could mean twice a week and looking for those patterns. So maybe you post like having something, I like to call it a signature series. You could call it like no one needs to know, like Instagram, your followers don't need to know it's a signature series, but for you, it could be like every Tuesday I post a face to camera real estate piece of advice, like a mindset shifting type of a post or something that my ideal client would want to know. And you do that every Tuesday. So, like on Tuesdays, I'm getting on camera, it's going to be a reel, or like pick whatever it is. It could be a carousel. It could be, a reel with B-roll, like, but just something you can stick to long enough to kind of measure that pattern, and then give the algorithm something that your followers now know she does this every Tuesday. And maybe you even do call it out. You're like, hey, every Tuesday I share this, or every Thursday I share a local post sharing a spot that I love in our town or something like that. So you kind of have it's essentially theming your days, but you don't need to theme every day of the week. It's like theming 1 or 2 days so that you can be consistent and it holds you accountable. Because if people know you're doing that on Tuesday and then you don't do it, now you're going to feel like I didn't stick to whatever I just told them I'm going to do. I just did this week, actually. I said, which post do you want to see? So like I gave my audience 2 choices, which kind of invites in that like community involvement. It makes them like feel like they're part of it. The result was basically 50-50. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm posting both. But I picked just one, and I'm like, here's the one that got picked first. And like, I made it like gamified it in a way so they could go see it. But I'm like, I said this, so now I have to deliver. So like, even just doing that held me accountable. But at the same time, it like got them involved. And I knew I was posting something in the realm of like more of an educational post. So like, you kind of have your parameter of like, this is the category almost. And then you could invite your followers to be like, I want this or that. And now you're like, okay, I'm going to post this on Tuesday. And now you have your post for the week about real estate is like, check and done. But yeah, theming your days and then coming up with some type of a signature series. And if you want to name that signature series, we have tons of name ideas. It's in our trending content ideas list. There's like 20 ideas. And then in our content at Modern Agent, there's always like, we'll put on there, like, this would make a great series or whatever. So like, just pick one and like kind of run with it. I love like a lot of the local ones that are like, if I was new to city name, here's what you need to know. And like, you could, instead of making it this long post with like 80 things, you could be like, I'm going to give just one a week kind of a thing where it's like, this is the best place to get coffee on a Saturday. This is when the farmer's market is. This is the event you have to attend this summer. Like, so like little micro pieces. And then when I say that about local, it's not necessarily like you need to post everything about your whole entire community, but like post the stuff that you like to do. And like, maybe you go to the high school football games and you post that, like make it more on brand to you by making it the things you spend your time doing.
So I have a tiny question going off of that. That's more maybe like what you would suggest. So I've heard it done different ways, like to schedule. So you talk about consistency. One thing that helped me with consistency when I'm planned ahead is that I can schedule posts to post them, which is super helpful. But then sometimes I'm like, but then are they getting the same engagement? Is it better to post like, I actually make it and post it right away? Does it matter?
No, you can totally schedule posts. It doesn't hurt you. The one thing I would say is if you can try to be like active on your story, even if it's like a 2-second thing, like when you post, it will help. Obviously, it's not like a make it or break it thing, but it will kind of just help because now your story bubbles, closer in the feed. Like today, this is a good example. I posted a post this morning, and then I went to my stories, and I was like, see which one I posted based on yesterday's poll, and then I like linked it. So it was like, not that I'm just like share a post to story and I say nothing and give it no context. That kind of is like an outdated thing to do, but more like give it something, or even like quick pop on and it's like a picture of your coffee cup and it's like, just shared a post about XYZ because I had this question at a showing yesterday, or like just something that kind of drives that like momentum over to the piece of content. Again, it's not going to be make it or break it. The algorithm is so different these days. Like a post can like keep going. Like before it was like, your post is dead in 24 hours, like no one's going to see it anymore. It's kind of not like, it's not like that anymore. If a post is getting attention or like especially a carousel post is one example. The algorithm pushes out like different slides of your carousel to get like, some people see slide 3 first, and it's like a good way to, it just has more opportunity. That individual post gets more opportunity. So it's not just about like, I hope everyone possible sees it in this, 24-hour window when it's chronological. It's not chronological anymore, which some people wish it was. But, to kind of just remember that, I think it'd be more important to consistently get your post done on a Tuesday than it is to not do anything because you couldn't go all in the moment. Like Instagram does want you to share content obviously and to be active and to like use their tools if you want to call it that. So yeah, scheduling is totally fine. But yeah, being on there even before or after, like it doesn't have to be like I posted right this second and now I have to be on here. Like just something simple helps. Like just being like that little bit of like extra, or like kind of almost like think of it, I'm showing the account that I'm human. Like I'm on here. Like I'm not just an automated account. Yeah.
That's good. That's because sometimes I get in my head about that. I'm like, wait, did that not go good because I scheduled it or whatever? But all right.
Sometimes, honestly, sometimes I post and I do not go on there because I just can't. But at least like that post is there and it's keeping me consistent. And that's like, at the end of the day, it's like valuing one over the other. Like I'd rather get that post out than like post in real time and comment and engage and like, all of those things. So really like with Instagram, the rules that like people talk about all the time, like there really aren't that many. The core of it is like being a human, really. They want authentic content, originality. They want you to be active on the app, obviously, like having the conversations. And they actually said that, I thought this was really interesting. I just heard this too, that so much of Instagram content is actually shared like extremely privately, like where they can't even really, like it's not like it's things are getting shared to a story or posted. Like a lot of it is getting shared via DM. So it's like someone sending their friend this post. So when you think about like circling back to engagement, a lot of the engagement is almost like invisible. And I think that's why they added the like shares as like you can see how many people shared it now, because they're like, this is like a big metric. Like people are sending this 1-to-1 way more than they're sending it to like their whole feed. So
yeah, I mean, I do that. Like I'm more likely to share it because my feed has a specific niche. So if I see something cool in like the cheer world, I can send it to my daughter or somebody, a coach. Or my sister and I always share. It's like a hilarious thing. We just constantly share different posts about like sisters or about family dynamics. Like we're like constantly sharing funny things, but I would not put that on my main feed. So that makes a lot of sense. I love that. Okay, so one thing that I love about Modern Agent Social Club is that you guys, it's not just like plug and play with Instagram. And I love the plug and play is helpful, especially when you're starting out. Or you're new to Instagram or you're not really sure how to post. But one thing I love, and it's funny that you guys are doing Donald Miller's storytelling, because I love the idea of that you guys really help capture the storytelling. Fun fact, I used to be an high school English teacher for 10 years. I know, loved it. It was a great time in my life. So this idea of like discovering your voice is always something that I've seen value in. But now that I'm even doing it myself, I can get caught in like just being a part of everyone else's voice and not my own voice. So in a world where Instagram does love like being authentic and genuine and original, but yeah, at the same time, trend, like you're like you find yourself chasing like trends or chasing what you see. How do you like help? How can someone figure out how to find their voice on social media to where it does feel authentic, and like practical ways to connect to their audience, like in that storytelling? Because that is something I love about you guys that makes you, I think, unique too.
I feel like it's like harder to explain than it is to do, which is so weird. I feel like if you would read back like something that you wrote, and then like a story doesn't have to be like A to Z, how I got my real estate license. It could be like a little snippet of a story that like my third day went by of like no kids turned in their paper or what, I don't know, I can't think of a good one, and I decided to get my real estate license. I don't know, like just something like a random thing, and then you pull it in as like your hook, and then like just that little blurb is technically like a story that you can like weave into things. Or I always think about, do you know Jenna Kutcher?
Yes.
her whole like story is like the $300 Craigslist camera. And she always like weaves in like that's how she got started and blah blah blah. And like so taking like this little moment can be like a story. So like that would be one thing, is like kind of finding your connection point of like, why did you get into real estate? Or maybe it's about the way you do it. It could be like a coaching experience that you like pull in and like, this is why I coach my clients to do this thing. So like kind of plugging it in that way, where it's something from a real life experience turned into whatever. So I would kind of come up with like that repeatable story, because the repeatable stuff is so powerful, because people then remember you for that thing. Like Kelly is the one who's the cheerleading coach and the English teacher, and she's going to, because of that, my experience will be this way, or because of that, she talks about these things on Instagram. So it's like that kind of like anchor piece that ties it all together in a way. So like that could be just like a teeny story snippet. But for the other parts, I would think about like when you read something back, like, is that how you would write it if you were writing it to like a friend? Because like it's like sometimes we put on this robotic voice on social media when we don't need to, because the content will come across so much better if it is written more, I don't want to say casually from the standpoint of like unprofessional, but more casually, like it sounds like you're writing it to one person, not to all of Instagram. Like that's kind of what you want it to feel like. So when someone reads it, it sounds like it's almost to them. Like this message was like sent to me. You're kind of sharing the same thing over and over, like that advice you want to give your ideal client, that story of how you got into real estate. And you're kind of telling like, why would you be the agent they pick without saying that, right? Like just through the content you're sharing, they're going to be attracted to you because you're showing up in that like natural way. It's not this force, like, here's 3 reasons why you should hire me. It's not that. It's I'm your real estate agent who is gonna talk about your favorite TV shows and give you my best advice, just like I would when I'm coaching my cheerleaders, and whatever, like kind of having that plug-in of here's Kelly's story within her content every time you see a piece of it, and not to make it harder, but to make it easier, because like once you have it, it's like you're just gonna weave it in.
So I did the route where, because I was back and forth, like, should I start over, right, with my account? And I think you guys, I've listened to some podcasts that you guys have had before, where you and Kayla, where it's like, don't start over, like you're using your sphere, right? And that was a good friend recommended that to me too, who's also in real estate. She's like, girl, use your sphere. You already have an account that people follow. And so I've done that, but then there's this like, well, I need to be more professional now too. And so I think like I kind of could sometimes swing the opposite or both directions, where some weeks I'm like super personable, and then some weeks like just super professional and like educational. Like there's almost like a middle ground there that I need to find. What would you say about like, is there such thing as like oversharing, or is there a line where you're like, that's not professional and you kind of went too far in the opposite direction, or is there not?
Like the difference would be like private versus personal. Private is kind of like, you're not sharing your whole life on Instagram. You're really, at the end of the day, even if people, like even our conversation at the beginning, and I feel like, okay, like I have a good feel for who you are, enough where I could like have a conversation and keep talking and keep asking you questions. It's like that feeling when you meet someone at a cocktail party and you feel like you just hit it off on one topic or another and you can keep talking. Like you want it to feel that way, but that person isn't knowing your whole life. You get to choose what you want to keep private. So this is the way I like to teach it. I call it the Modern Agent Content Cocktail. So it's 1 part real estate, 1 part personality, 1 part local. So if you strive to have your content include all 3 things, and sometimes it'll include 2 and sometimes it'll, whatever, but if it's about real estate, then add the splash of personality. So add something about coaching, add something about getting, why you're working with you is like a French 75 or whatever. Add something like, add a picture of you, add your voice, add your face on camera. So like, even if it's about real estate, it's not this like random real estate graphic that has no personality that no one's really going to know you from, but almost something that would carry the conversation further. Like even if they weren't thinking about buying or selling, because you talked about coaching, now they're like, oh, like you coach this. Well, my daughter is getting into high school and might want to start cheerleading. Like it's that next step of the conversation. Or if it's a personal post, If it's something a little bit more about like behind the scenes or like your favorite local places, then you add in like, as a city name real estate agent, here's my favorite place to go, blah, blah, blah. So like either way, you have one or the other. So that makes it like not too personal and not or too real estatey, or not, either side of it, you have a splash of the other that gives it that perfect mix or that perfect balance. And there is no like perfect. Everyone's kind of going to define what they share on their own. Like some people are going to want like a little more polished and professional, which I don't think professional means like lacking personality. I just think maybe they want it more curated as far as like the look goes, or they want like the vibe of it to be very cohesive or things like that. Whereas some people just kind of want this more document style, behind the scenes feel, and they're not super concerned with the look and like the cohesiveness of the grid. So I think there's not a right or a wrong.
Sometimes I'm like, what does Instagram want? But it doesn't really matter what Instagram wants. It's like, how do I want to portray who I am online, and then be okay with that. So instead of like chasing the trends or chasing what you think, your clients want, it's just, well, I'm actually reading the let them theory right now. So
good.
Right, this idea of like, no, this is what I feel is, this is who I want to be online, not necessarily what I think if I'm trying to curate to every single client, well, then I'm going to constantly be going back, forth.
And then you're going to lose like all sense of identity. Yeah. It's doing what feels authentic and good to you. And then the more you do it, like the easier it feels, and like the more defined it almost becomes.
That identity thing is really good, because that is something like in my personal life, my real life, I'm very confident about who I am. And I'm very secure in who I am. But then sometimes you get on Instagram and I'm like, do I need to be something else? Or you hear like, you don't want to be cringy. And I was like, what's cringy? Because it's different for everybody. And now I'm chasing that I don't want to be. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to stay in the confidence of who I am. And if that's cringy to my 13-year-old daughter and her friends, and that's okay. Because
I just read this post and it was like, when you feel like it's cringy, someone's voice is in your head. Identify that person. And I'm like, that is so true. And maybe it is your 13-year-old, or maybe it's a girl from high school that you always had like a thing with. Like they gave like a bunch of examples. I'm like, that's so funny.
That is so true though. But everyone's going to have their own version of what that is. And so
100%. Yeah.
To be fair to my 13-year-old, she's very, she actually loves that I do Instagram, and
that's so cool.
And she's funny. The other thing that I love that you guys do is you'll be talking about just a TV show that you're watching. You're like, I can use this in my marketing plan. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. So now I look at everything. I'm like, how can I use this in my marketing?
Everything is marketing.
Which is super
White
helpful.
Lotus is a great marketing experience. I could talk about it for weeks. It's so funny too, because people get very hung up on things like, your brand menu. And it's like you said, the crime, true crime stuff, like it's just a simple little subtle thing. And for example, when White Lotus is on, I talk about it in my marketing, but then like when it's not on, it doesn't really come up. So like some things are just like random seasonal pop-ins. And what you could say is like TV is one of my things, not necessarily like it used to be very focused on, like I always gave like Friends references and talked about watching Friends. And now it's kind of expanded to like, I kind of like talking about a bunch of different shows because they just relate in different ways and there's marketing takeaways in different ways. So now I would say more so TV. So even like brand menu wise, it evolves and it changes with like whatever's happening, whatever you're liking, or like this even seasonality, like during cheerleading season, you're probably a lot more like talking about that than not. And it doesn't mean you have to talk about it all year. It just means that when you are in that time, you are going to probably share about it in your stories or maybe relate to it more. It's just top of mind for you.
Actually, one of my questions too is like, how often do you update your brand? Because I do get bored, and because my personal life is constantly evolving and updating, and like your seasons are different. And so, we don't have to stay in that same brand and like be stuck to it if you are evolving if your life is evolving around you, being authentic means evolving with it. Would you say?
I would say like having a vibe to your brand, which I know is like not really specific, but like a feel to it, like so that almost like when someone is consuming your content, it's giving them this feeling, like whether that is like super fun and bubbly, or it's more serious and professional, or it's a mix of the two. Like having that vibe of your brand is probably more important than like a color or a font. Like I think having consistency through those things help people remember you more, like because they'll almost like you see your piece of content in the wild and they can identify that it's yours because it's very
Yeah.
consistent as far
Yeah.
as the look goes, you know? But even that comes down to like, if you have photos of yourself that you use the same ones. Like you don't always need a new one because like that again creates that brand. It creates that consistency, that repetition that people are like, oh my gosh, it looks familiar. Like there's so much to the
Right.
familiar that works from like a psychology standpoint with marketing and like memorability. So I think you don't need to have like, I really transformed the look of our brand like in the last year and it finally feels like me, but I probably won't like completely revamp that again next year. You know, like that's maybe
Right.
something that would happen every 5 years and it would still probably stay somewhat in the same vibe of like fun, you know, like that pop of personality feeling, but
Right.
like still look professional. Like that's kind of the vibe that I've like laid out. Or I always said like I love wine and wine country. It's like very high end, but it's laid back. Like that's kind of the description you gave with that French 75. It's like a high end experience. It's elevated, but like I'm gonna keep it simple. Like I love that.
It's like really your brand, if your brand, the consistency of your brand should be how you're making people feel. Like the content, the details can shift, but how they make people feel should be the same. You know,
Right.
it's your, I love that. That's a little bit of even like hospitality. Like when someone comes over to my house, I want them to feel a certain way. I think that even helps. So like back to my even time questions, like the consistency in time, that's my biggest probably roadblock is gosh, my time. And I try to block the time out, but it just gets eaten up. But at the same time, I'll catch myself when people are like, yeah, I spent 2 minutes on this reel. And I was like, well, why'd that take me an hour? But it's like, I'm second guessing what font do I use? Like, which one, even in stories sometimes. And I was thinking the other day, like, no, I need to use the same font every single time. So it's not a decision. It's not a decision that's clogging my brain. Like, because
100%.
nobody cares what font I use. Nobody
Right.
cares except for me. You know, like,
I just
I'm
want
the
to see
only
the same font for the most part. Maybe sometimes you
right.
use two, but like two that go together.
Right.
But yeah, it just makes posting so much easier. It makes creating the reel easier because you're like, I'm doing this font, I'm doing this. Even like B-roll, like if you like have a bank of B-roll or like you start to create one like just throughout the next month or whatever, you can like reuse those a million different ways. It's not like you need to record a new one every time.
Yeah, honestly, that feature on iPhone, that basically the AI, I can just say things like walking because I want to walking, and it'll pop up all my videos, and I'm like, that saves me a lot of
Isn't it
time.
crazy? Yeah, it really does. Or like,
I'm like, I love this feature.
yeah, I know. It's so nice. The benefits to AI are definitely becoming more evident. At first I was like, "Oh gosh," and now I'm like, "I'm really liking this thing."
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much. I guess I will see you on Instagram and in the Facebook group, but
Yeah.
this was really fun.
Yeah. So fun. Thank you so much for the opportunity.